the last guy like I really, really want to talk about is VJ Edgecombe, because VJ is a player that I love the idea of. And from all the intel I've done so far, like I love everything I've been told about that dude too. Leadership, real like communication, personality, competitiveness, team oriented, like has that like blend of all of those things that make you think somebody's going to be a star, basically. I wish that he was a little bit bigger. I've like kind of reached out to some people, and I've been calling him 6'3" for a little while. I think he's probably 6'4" is what I've been told.
I would agree. I saw him at Formula Zero. I'd say that he's somewhere 6'4", pretty firmly. Maybe 6'4.5" would be pushing it, but somewhere in there.
Yeah. So I was told like 6'4", 6'4.5", like exactly what you said is about where he's going to settle in height wise. So I think that, I've been saying 6'3" because that's what he looked like when I saw him at Hoop Summit in March. Maybe he grew like an inch. Maybe, I was just misjudging it. He's going to come in like around like 6'4" apparently. So 6'4", 6'4.5", like Keandre said. Still wish he was just like slightly bigger.
Yeah.
But man, that dude is bouncy. I really buy him as an off-ball like scorer. I think he like is just automatic as a catch and shoot guy. Like truly, like people will question the shot mechanics and people will question the percentages because the pull up hasn't been elite yet. But I think that he is like a serious catch and shoot weapon where if you leave him open, it's curtains. Like that ball is going up and that ball is going in. The mechanics are repeatable. They are consistent. They are simple. There's nothing concerning there at all whatsoever. I think that dude is like a lights out off ball scorer. My questions come off the ball. So where do you settle on, or come on the ball? I'm sorry. Where do you settle on VJ coming into this season at Baylor?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think he's as Baylor a top 5 prospect could be as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like he's as perfect a guy for Scott Drew, and also has, that level of talent. So I think that's going to be a perfect fit in that aspect. And, I agree, high level off ball scorer. I talked to a lot of different people about this, but like, there's been a lot of questions about his shot, but then when you look at the percentages, like he's been around 40 on high attempts in multiple settings over the last couple of years since he's kind of made his ascendance. So like, I think that's going to be there. And if that's there, it opens up what he's able to do in terms of straight line driving and that type of thing, and using his athleticism. But like you said, like the biggest question is on the ball. I think that he's going to be able to do that stuff. Everything else is kind of a work in progress to me. Like the pull up has not been there hardly at all. And obviously both percentage wise and just in terms of his comfort and like transitioning and pickups, that type of stuff hasn't, been as smooth as you'd like it to be at this point. Again, for a guy who is like 6'4", 6'4.5", somewhere in there, and is like mostly wing. Like if he was 6'6", I think some of these concerns would be like, oh, he can figure that out over the course of those first couple of years. But it becomes more of a pressing issue if he is, more real guard size, especially with how much bigger guys are getting in the NBA now. But yeah, I think you look at that, and he has moments like in the Bahamas. There was times where he's stringing together moves, and he has the fast twitch and stuff to get past guys. It's just about the handle more consistently and kind of picking and choosing his spots and really, putting all that stuff together that I think is really going to be the ultimate determining factor in, who he is as a player. But yeah, like there's a lot of pieces. Another high motor guy, like just somebody I think has a great floor, and at the end of the day is going to contribute in the NBA. In my opinion, I think he's going to contribute. It's just about like all the other stuff that kind of determine him.
I'm gonna bring up a name here, and I think people are gonna think about it some type of way, and like think I'm underrating him, and I really don't mean this to underrate anybody. I almost think he's like Cason Wallace if you gave Cason Wallace like super jets athletically, right? And that player, by the way, like has an all-star upside to me. Like Cason Wallace with like super jets athletically is unbelievable to me. But the way that Cason defends is very similar to VJ. VJ is hyper aggressive at the point of attack, and like despite being not super thick and like not super like strong theoretically, it was impossible to go through Cason's chest. It is exceptionally difficult to go through VJ Edgecombe's chest, despite the fact that he looks like a guy that doesn't have like a ton of bulk on his frame. You know what I mean? He is an awesome defensive player. He's a havoc player on defense. Like he flies around. He is. I love watching this dude. I love watching him. He is, again, just a player that I truly enjoy watching almost more than I have questions as a prospect, maybe, I guess is what I would say on the ball. But I freaking love this dude. And if you gave Cason Wallace VJ's vertical pop, where I think VJ will enter the NBA as like a 1%, top 2% athlete, purely in terms of vertical pop. I don't think he's quite like a top 1 or 2% athlete in terms of quickness, but and like on the ground quickness and lateral ability. But in vertical pop, like he has that. Like he's a serious joke athletically. If you gave Cason Wallace that dude's like definitely a top 5 pick. It is like a total joke to me.
Yeah. What do you think about the Oladipo comp, at least coming into the NBA?
So it's interesting because like Victor was like a 3-year college player, right?
Yeah.
And it took Victor like a little bit of time to really develop into what Victor eventually became. So if we're considering like and VJ's a little bit older too, like we should mention that like VJ, I believe, will be 20 on draft night, right? It'll be like right around that.
Turns 20 right after, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So like VJ is like slightly older than these guys. So maybe the Victor comp is, applicable in the way that you're bringing it up here. But I don't disagree with that. I think that's an interesting name to bring up. And Victor was an all NBA player that just got hurt, right? And that ended up sapping his career. If you watch Victor at Indiana, I mean, my goodness, like that dude was a joke. The other thing I will say from everybody I've talked to about VJ is like, you can see this in his trajectory. He was not a high-level recruit when he first got to Lehigh, and then up in Long Island Lutheran in New York. He got there for his junior year, and then continued to just grow and grow and grow and grow and get better and get better. From what I've been told, like his work ethic is freaking insatiable. Like that dude is playing hard. That dude is going physical and like he is 3 a days, like trying to get as much better as he can, as quick as he can. Like he loves it from what I've been told. So you combine that with the athleticism, you combine that with everything else that he brings. It's hard to bet against him on some level to me. Like it's kind of impossible to bet against him. And yet when I watch him on the ball, I get worried. Like I just do, because particularly like, you sort of brought up the left hand, but like, I really worry about his left hand. Like it's just not there yet. Whenever I see it, even if you like pressure him, if you pick him up at like half court and pressure him, I feel like struggles to put the ball in his left hand and like play through contact with his dribble. That's my worry with VJ, is can he consistently improve that left hand and get to the point where he can play through that contact and be able to play at a higher level?
Yeah, I think that, he had a couple moments just speaking of seeing him at Dame's camp at Formula Zero where he was getting better using that left hand.
Yeah.
There's one play in particular against they were doing like these 3-on-3 drills against Jaleel Bethea. He was pressuring him out there. And he took it initially, and it kind of seemed like in the past he might have passed it off or something, but continued driving, got there, finished with the left. Obviously, there's no
Mm,
help side when you're playing threes or fours, but it seemed like he was making progress. So that is going to be a huge thing for him because sometimes in the past, when he was at Lehigh, it just wasn't there at all. Especially like just at the bucket, and he'll do
yeah,
some crazy
totally.
things athletically to get it back to the right hand. He might finish it, but that becomes a lot harder at
It
the
does.
next level. But yeah, I think again, going back to the beginning of things, like I just think he has enough tools. I think we haven't mentioned like his passing and transition, I think has been
Yeah.
pretty intriguing as well, and just like making an extra pass, pretty unselfish. Um, it's just about like, can he do enough as a creator and pull up shooter
Yeah.
and those types of things to his touch, on floaters or in between type of stuff too as well.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing I will note, having watched him at Hoop Summit, you mentioned seeing him at Formula Zero. The ball screen game, I think, has also really improved. Like
Mhm,
he is a lot more comfortable playing at his own pace, like getting into the middle of the court and playing at his own pace there and not being rushed there, right? Not being, kind of sped up and like getting bumped and getting moved off the ball. And like, I think he hit some impressive skip passes when I saw him at Hoop Summit. Like you saw him,
mhm,
drill that cross corner kick out pretty effectively. Like he was able to maintain his patience and poise in the lane, despite, a lot of guys that are questionable in some way in the ways that we've brought up questions about VJ sometimes struggle with that speed of the game and the ability to slow down. He doesn't have that issue. I am a fan of VJ and his potential in ball screens, but you need to have like the skill level and the skill sets to be effective there once you get to the NBA.